is Level Select, a golf podcast from the boys over at Fair Wagers Golf, where we aim to help you learn more about some of the nation's most talked about golf courses, as well as uncover some hidden gems with a little help from our friends and their firsthand experiences. I'm TJ Van Gunten, and with me, as always, is Sean Massey. Today, we're going to be talking about a course where you can see the ocean from literally every hole. Sure, it's only a 9-hole golf course, and sure, it's only accessible by ferry or lobster boat, but still, ocean views on every hole, people. We're talking about the Great Chebeague Golf Club on Chebeague Island in Casco Bay, Maine, with Aaron Shrank of Rustic Golf Provisions. Aaron, welcome to Level Select.
Thanks, boys, for having me. Let's get into it today.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about this course, I think, a handful of times. I think you definitely had this one kind of pegged as one that you wanted to talk about because it is so unique, correct?
Yeah, it's unique. It's kind of quirky. Once you hear more about it, you have to literally take a boat to get there. So that's kind of a bucket list item us golf nuts can check off. So when you ask me, what course do I want to tell you guys about, I wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of a taste of what New England golf is like out here. Although this course in particular is not representative of all of New England, but if you come to, Portland, Maine for a weekend, make a little day trip out to Chebeague Island, you're going to get the full Maine slash New England experience.
Yeah. I debated leading the pod off today where we're thinking let's talk about another Portland golf course. You know, we've talked so much about Portland golf on the other coast and kind of, maybe fooling people into what we were talking about today and saying, nope, we're actually going to the East Coast talking Portland, Maine. But
Hmm.
I digress. I thought the idea of ferry or lobster boat would be a little bit more exciting and the ocean views, of course.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, Shabik's kind of a weird thing. I did a little, as we do with these, I do a little pre-research, and I think one of the only pieces of media that you can actually find that talks about Great Chebeague is an episode of Adventures in Golf with Eric Anders Lang of Random Golf Club, which do- don't pause the episode right now, but after this episode, after you're done listening or watching, go over to the Scratch YouTube channel and go watch this. It is phenomenal. He does a great job covering some of the history, where it's at, what it looks like. You'll get to experience like kind of the whole thing. And I think he even does like a little bit of lobster fishing and they eat the lobster that they caught that day, which is kind of cool.
And say Level Select sent me there
Yeah, right in his comments. He'd be
in the
like, I'm
comments.
only here because of level select, and then tag at Fair Wagers, please.
Hmm. Yeah, get get
Get
get
us
that
on
foot
the
in the door
All
radar.
real
guerrilla
quick.
marketing boys, we need. Come on,
Yeah, get us on the radar.
activate.
Yeah, we're ready to be. We're already ready to be brought into the RGC fold. You know, we will.
Yeah.
We will definitely be the golf course correspondents for RGC. Um, but yeah, so that's a great piece that I think you can also use to supplement this. You know, as we do with level selects, I think all of us are hoping that someday Sean and I get to make the trek out to Maine slash Rhode Island and eventually play this course with Aaron. I think that's the really like crux of what we want to do with a lot of this. And I think it was going to be very cool when we finally get to do that and then go and put it through the full must play test and see how it actually sorts out. Um, but much like I did with our previous episode when we talked about Cabot Citrus Farms and the Carew course, I wanted to pull just like a small little excerpt off of the website, um, which I want to paraphrase the website, which is also paraphrasing a Rachel Lindman Field poem. And I debated going back and forth on whether or not to include Rachel Lindman Field's name because I say it and it's like people are supposed to know who that is. It's not like it's an Edgar Allan Poe poem or something like that. But the quote says here, once you've played golf on an island, you'll never quite be the same. Aaron, true or false?
I can confirm 100% you will never be the same.
Okay.
Nice.
How different do you feel? Better or worse after your round of golf on an island?
I mean, honestly, I don't even remember what I shot that day. I don't really know if I was keeping score because there's just more to it than just 9 holes of golf. I mean, it's really like these are the types of rounds of golf that I like gravitate towards, kind of the quirky ones, like you have to take a ferry there, there's all these, finding a tee time there. There really are no tee times at all. The hardest part of the day is really just figuring out the logistics of everything. If you're staying in Portland, you got to figure
Mhm.
out, where do I park my car for the day? Where is the ferry? How much are tickets? What's the ferry schedule like? So going into it, the first time there was a lot to figure out. So to me, I like a lot of golf, rounds or trips that, require a lot of planning because it just kind of creates this like build up. And once you actually get there and kind of witness like what all the hype is all about, like especially from Eric's video, the Adventures in Golf one. There's the signature hole, which we're going to get to shortly, that you can't miss it when you get there. And it's only a 15-minute ride, but it is nice to kind of walk on with your golf clubs and you see other people are there for the same reason.
Mhm.
You kind of have that unspoken like salute to them, like, hey, like we're going to go out there and have a day today. And it's just it's I was talking to, I think, the head pro there, and I've kind of read and heard about it. Their style out there is that it's like this is how golf was meant to be played, and that's just really special because it's not what we're used to as golfers. We're just kind of used to like, okay, book a tee time, get there, half hour early, maybe get some swings in, roll some putts, and then just book it to the first tee. This is more of a laid back experience, and there's just a lot of mystique and aura like about this whole island, and it's just one of a kind in my opinion. Even if it is 9 holes, one of my favorite courses I've ever played.
Is it a 15-minute ferry from Portland or from, like, another island, or, like, how do you get there? Where do you leave from?
So if you're in the Portland area, there are different, ferry lines. Like you can get to Chebeague Island from like different directions, but the most popular way to get there is, I think it's called the Chebeague like Transportation Company. They have a ferry out of what's called Cousins Island. So
Mm,
Cousins Island is about a 15-minute drive from, the Portland mainland area. It is an island, but you can actually take a bridge to get there.
mhm,
So you drive there. On Cousins Island, they have a kind of like a satellite parking lot. You park the car there. You pay about a $20 like daily fee, and then at the parking lot they have like the ticket office where you purchase your round trip tickets for the ferry. I think they were about $15 at the time. And the nice thing about that is that then they bus you from Cousins Island probably another about 10 minutes down the road to like the ferry dock on that island. Then you get on the actual ferry, then it's only about a 15-minute ride to Chebeague. And the nice thing is that, you can see the island, from the starting point. And, all you see is the Great Chebeague in the hotel, kind of perched up on the hillside. And you can't miss the golf course. It's right there in front of you. So
yeah.
being able to see it like on your way in just kind of like adds to the build up.
Mhm.
You, said something earlier about, other guys with their bags, you just kinda give them the nod, the knowing look. That's one of my favorite things, even at the airport. It's like you find your tribe of people and you
Hmm.
kinda you're not sizing up, but you're noticing, "Oh, they got the Titleist hat on," or, "Oh, they got the hardcover bag," or whatever, and you just kind of lock eyes with them every once in a while,
Hmm.
and it's inevitable. You're usually just like, kinda, Where are you headed? Where are you playing?"
Yeah.
Because
It's
they're about to go have a fun time too, a trip. It's your own people.
Yeah, exactly.
Aaron's very familiar with this feeling because I know Aaron played Bandon last year, but it's like getting on the bus at Bandon in the morning, right? And everyone's got their bags and everyone's got like a coffee in hand and
Mhm.
everyone's already still like, where are you guys playing today? Are you guys playing 18? Are you playing 36? Like, what courses are you playing? What have you played? Like, everyone's in like that same mindset of like, and everyone's just so jazzed, right?
Hmm.
I think the other thing that I want to pull out of what Aaron had initially said is the true test or the true, I guess, the true measure of a great golf course is not giving a fuck about what you shot that day and not even like remembering it unless you went insanely low. Like,
Yeah.
is there any better way to say, like, oh, this golf course is so good that no one ever remembers what they shot because they were so enamored by everything else with it?
That happened to me at Goat Hill. We just did a episode on Goat. We decided to play a match on the back nine with both Andrews from Linksoul, and I stopped keeping my score. I didn't care because I was just having such a freaking great time out there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I imagine this course would be like that type of course where wow, I can't believe I'm here. I'm taking it all in. I don't even care if these holes run together. Like, I just want to spend time out here on this course. I'm assuming that's what it's like. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that this course is definitely, even though I may have kept score but don't remember it, it's around that, like, you never forget because of the whole experience. Um, and the signature hole, we'll still get to it, but I remember on the way back to the ferry. I mean, the ferry dock is literally like right there on the wharf, and then like that's where the tee box is for the seventh hole, the
Uh-huh.
par three. I played it twice because we made two 9-hole loops with lunch in between, and I remember my fiance. I was, like, almost in tears leaving 'cause, like, I was thinking about the next time we were gonna come back. I just got down on, like, my knees, and I literally kissed, like, the hitting mat for the tee box, and my fiancé took a picture of it, and TJ, like, "I'll send it to you, you can overlay it into the video,"
Yeah.
and that's one of, few holes that will make me, like, emotional and, like, want to, like, kiss the ground.
That's awesome.
Yeah, also like spoiler for the Adventures in Golf video. I think at the time Eric Anders Lang said it was the coolest par three he's ever seen in his life.
Yeah,
Which I imagine he's
that video was about 5 years ago, so we'd have to see
if
what
it
his take
if it
is
holds
now.
up.
Mhm.
I mean, he's probably played a decent amount of golf up to that point and seen a lot of cool par threes. I wonder. Yeah, I'd be very interested to hear if it stands the test. Maybe we'll include this on social and try and see if we can get a response out of him.
Yeah.
Sean, do you have any knowledge of Great Chebeague going into today's conversation, or is everything brand new to you?
It's pretty brand new. I mean, I also saw that video, but I whenever I travel, even if I know I'm not taking my clubs with me, of course I have to go look at what courses are around there because I'm just a sicko. And this didn't pop up. I mean, we spent 2 weeks in Old Orchard Beach, just south of Portland. And we spent a lot of time in Portland too. Had amazing food and like spent time in the summer there. So prime golf time. And I had done research at some other courses that were like maybe further south or around there. And this one didn't pop up in any of my research. So like I'm a little pissed that I didn't find this earlier because I definitely would have probably been a bucket list thing also. Like take a ferry over there. How cool is that? Um, and how close it is to Portland too. Like it's really not that far. I know you said the Cousins Island thing, you got to go north and then come back around. But other than that, this morning I was like, I got to look up a few things, and from the aerial views it looks very boring. And
Yeah.
then you kind of like look at the like watch a video or you kind of read about it and you're like, oh, it's not about how it looks. It's not about
Oh,
that whatsoever.
yeah.
It's more so the experience and what we'll talk about today. So I had
Mhm.
very little background on this course.
Mhm.
Gives me almost some similar vibes to like Torrey Pines, where it's not about like the actual like golf course itself or how the holes play or anything like that. Like it's kind of like, nah, man, like you're right here on the ocean and you're playing golf at the same time. Like that should cover it,
Yeah,
you
like,
know?
TJ,
there's
I'm gonna throw the flag on that's a bad take. This is
It,
like
it,
Torrey Pines. The
it,
You tell me Torrey doesn't look good from the air?
Well, like, does Tori look? Hold on. Like, as if you look at the holes of a golf course from
Yeah,
the air at Torrey Pines, are
yeah.
you enamored by any of the holes on either course,
The
other
cliffside
than?
holes.
Uh, Hold on, let me get there. Other than 3 on South or 15 on North.
Yeah, I would say 4 on South also looks pretty sick.
Okay,
I
so 3 holes amongst 36 holes of golf.
No, there's more than just that. I just wanna say, I hear you on the point you made. It's the experience. We've talked about being out there. Valid points on all that. I
Yeah,
just did not think Tory was gonna come out of your mouth when you said
I
this
just
reminds me of blank.
if you took all of the holes of Torrey Pines and put them anywhere else that was not on the Pacific Ocean, you'd be like sick $40 municipal course. Sick.
I can sort of see where TJ is coming from. Right, if you remove the scenery, kind of the theater effect of Tory, and kind of just
Uh-huh.
like do an aerial view, and because they know there aren't many trees on the course, so it is a you know a pretty like standard routing if you look at it just from an aerial view. So I think maybe what TJ was kind of getting at, like the whole experience of like the journey to Torrey and like, maybe getting there at 4 a.m. and hoping you get one of those first five tee times. Like maybe that's where he was coming from.
You
I
know,
digress though.
Aaron,
you know,
I appreciate you extending the olive branch. Also, this gives me the total vibe of a workplace setting where someone
uh-huh.
went off the handle a little bit and the manager steps in and goes, I think what TJ was really just trying to
Yeah.
say.
I just thought that, my co-host would defend me a little bit more than our guests would, you know?
Yeah.
Uh I digress. Let's bring it
Well,
back to
now, now,
Chebeague
now,
a little
now it's
bit.
like I'm the host. Now I'm trying to
Yeah,
mediate between you
look at
two.
me. I'm the
Yeah.
host now.
Yeah, no, if
Yeah,
anything, Aaron,
yeah.
you're a
Look at
moderator,
me.
not a host. All right. I'm going to let Aaron dive into like kind of what the full experience of going and playing Chebeague is beyond just the 15-minute ferry ride over. But I also want to touch on a few other like fun facts about Chebeague Island. Initially, this was a destination resort in the early 1900s where many people would come and stay for a full month at a time because back then it was not easy to get to. So you weren't going to come and stay for the weekend or even a week. And that's kind of where the creation of the golf course came from. Was it said, hey, we need to give people other attractions while they're here on the island. And they still heavily rely upon tourism to this very day. And the course has been there for over 100 years. So they've actually worked extremely diligently hard to get the course on the National Registry of Historic Places. I
Hmm.
think there's about five different
Yep.
courses in
One
Maine
of
that
one
fall
of
into this.
five. Correct.
One of five, which
Love
is
that.
crazy. And just this is a little fun fact about the Chebeague Island. Only grades K through 5 are on the island. If you are outside of 5th grade, you have to take a ferry every day to go to school. So
Mm.
think about all those times in your life where you woke up, maybe 20 minutes before you had to be at school and still managed to get there on time. Chebeague Island kids, not happening. Either you wake up on time and you make the ferry, or you're not going to class that day.
Or you're on the wrong piece of land.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's pretty rough. So with that said, Aaron, tell us a little bit more about the experience of once you're on the island. You've taken the ferry over. There, you've experienced the camaraderie. You've experienced the somewhat weird feeling of having your golf clubs on a boat. But what happens once you step foot off the boat? Like what's the step of getting to play golf at Chebeague?
So do you want to get into the must play test? Is this where we start invoking them or not
No,
yet?
no. Tell me about how you get into that round. I want to talk a little bit about your rounds, and then we'll get into some reviews, and then we'll get into the must play
Okay.
test.
So like I said before, when you're taking the ferry in, it's a very short, smooth ride. You can see the hotel perched up on the hilltop. You can see kind of the wide open fairways on some of the holes, but the only thing on your mind, or at least on my mind, was the seventh hole, the signature hole. And you see it right when you get there. So everyone gets off the ferry. Half of us have our golf bags, half of them are maybe going to like return there because they live there year round. Everyone's kind of there for different reasons. So, and then like there's kind of a parking lot on the wharf. So some people are getting picked up. So you have to walk about, I think it's about 200 yards. You kind of have to walk onto the golf course property. You take a bit of a right and you see this kind of white looking shack or house. That is the pro shop. You know, they don't have a ton of merch. You're not going to splurge and, do some damage in your wallet in this pro shop. And then they have a kind of like an attic upstairs where they have golf clubs in storage for the summer or for the off season. And when I got there, well, I guess leading up to that day, and I'm always used to, book a tee time, get the email confirmation, get it secured, just have that peace of mind. Didn't get that experience whatsoever. So when we got there, I just had no idea what to expect. It was just me, and my fiance. I was the only one playing, but she was generous enough to be my photographer because
Yeah,
I
can
had my
we can we
camera.
just can we just pause and give kudos to Aaron's fiance here really quick for being the perfect golf fiance to say, hey, not only will I go on this ferry ride with you so that you can go play golf, but I'll also like hang out for the round and take photos whether or not what I don't want to know how much you paid her or what you did for that, Aaron. We don't have to get into that. We're just going to give her kudos now and then move along.
Mhm. Well, I did pay for our ferry tickets. May have paid for the Airbnb we were staying in
Mhm.
Portland. I
Yeah,
think I also paid for lunch, after the first 9
Aaron,
holes. So I
Aaron,
think I
I
think
tried
it
to
all
get you
worked
out of
out.
this. I tried to get you out of this.
She pretty much owed you at that point, it sounds like.
I
Yeah, I was gonna
mean,
say, yeah, I'd
because of the
say I still have a
implication.
balance that she owes me. So anyway, once we get in there, I was talking to the head pro, and there were we all everyone on my ferry kind of got it for the same time, and we got to the pro shop, and that's where he said, "Okay, I'm just gonna have you guys kind of form groups of four, and you just kind of go off as you wish." It's very informal. There's no starter. They don't get a ton of business. Especially the time of year that I was there, so. It was can't remember what it was at the time, but I did look up the rates earlier. I think I did pay $60, and it's for unlimited golf. You can play all day, and that's just the beauty of it. That's like the golf as it was meant to be played, like I mentioned earlier. So
That's cool.
we all I think there were about maybe 8 or 12 people that were kind of coming in at the same time, and he was generous enough to lend us a golf cart, because we had the camera with us, and he was generous enough to let me kind of use the cart to kind of get around, maybe hop ahead and get some pictures from different angles. If there
Very
was
cool.
a kind of like a slow spot, I could get out and use the camera myself, because you've got the ocean views, and I mean, just can't say no to that. So the first hole, and what I forgot to mention this earlier. When you get to the wharf, the road that leads down to the parking lot, I believe it's called Wharf Road. You have to take that road to kind of get more into the island, and that
Okay.
road kind of bisects the golf course. It goes right down the middle, so there's a lot of holes. I think there's 4 holes, not in order, but I think it's like 1, 4, 5, and something else. Those holes go across the road, so they have very, like big restrictions on, when you can hit across the road, when you have to lay up. So on the first hole, it's only about a 300-yard par three, but the road is only about 180 from the tee box, and their number one rule is that you have to hit iron off the tee, just on one. So
Mm.
you hit about a 170-yard tee shot, leaving you 130 in, but then the other holes coming up that cross over the road, you can bomb it over. You just have to wait for traffic.
And just play extremely carefully. That's
Yep.
got to be it's got to be one of the few roads that has I think when they at the time when they put out the Adventures in Golf video, they said there was 3 stop signs on the whole island and no lights. So
Yep.
I
Yep.
would assume that that road has got at least one of them around the golf course where you're getting probably a lot of the tourism.
Hmm.
That's
Awesome.
cool.
So, what I want to jump into is obviously we know that Aaron loves this golf course. That's why he brought it to us today. But I want to always pull in some outside perspectives of what people think of Great Chebeague. We like to call this segment "Reviews of Reviews." We pull out a 5 star, we pull out a 1 star, and we kind of let Aaron, either confirm or deny slash rebuttal to some of these reviews. Not a whole lot of reviews on Great Chebeague to choose from. I will say that. I mean, it's a golf course that has no tee times, only accessible by ferry, so not exactly is the tee sheet filled every day. Um, but I think we've got some good stuff here to work with, at least on the 1 star side of things. But we're gonna lead off with the five. The 5 star review says Chebeague Island golf was super fun and worth getting a boat ride, in parentheses, from a friend. Humble brag on this guy.
Yeah.
He knows a guy with a boat. Over to the island. Funky course setup, but absolutely fun. Gotta love hitting from the turf mat in the dock parking lot over the ocean to the hole. Good times. So, Aaron, I think that pretty much sums up everything that you've said so
Hmm.
far in this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I think funky but fun is like spot on. And now that I've thought about it, 9-hole funky but fun courses are actually like some of my favorites. It's the ones that are kind of off the beaten path. They're not loaded with reviews. That was kind of why Sean had been to Portland at least once, and it never crossed his radar. So I kind of
Yeah.
like, going off that beaten path and finding those diamonds in the rough. So yeah, everything in that 5-star review, I could not agree more with it.
It's kind of like finding a restaurant that hasn't really been discovered or popular yet, and
Yeah.
they have some of the best whatever, and you're just like, this place, I don't know how more people aren't coming here. Like, this is just
Mhm.
incredible, and you love to take people.
Hmm.
I would imagine this course is like that. For someone visiting, you're like, hey, you can find golf anywhere, right? But this is one of a kind of experience,
Hmm.
so
But
I'm
where
gonna
where else can you take a ferry to a golf island or to an island
yeah,
for golf? And then, I mean, we didn't really get a chance to explore other parts of the island. We kind of just stayed on the property for golf, and then we
yeah.
also we also stopped at the hotel for lunch. But we kind of came to learn that there's way more to do on the island. You can, the next time we go, we're probably going to make a whole weekend out of it and stay like in that hotel.
Oh,
I'll
cool.
I'll kind of mention more about it like in another segment, but yeah, it's a nice like quaint like little getaway, especially like for a couple, and um
Yeah,
that's just it just adds to there's just more to it than just the 9 holes of golf. It's the overall
yeah.
experience.
I bet you can get some great Maine lobster rolls on that
I
island probably
mean,
too. So
it's
Yeah,
insanely fresh,
if
right?
you're gonna go out to that area, and if you've never been to Portland, you need to like get everything checked off for
yeah.
the main experience.
Are you a cold with mayonnaise or hot with butter guy?
I gotta go cold mayonnaise on the
Oh, okay.
brioche, the hot dog, like, brioche bun.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Did you say hot dog?
Oh god, here we go.
uh,
Stop recording, stop recording.
yeah, for anyone who's following along at home, we just did our Goat Hill episode and had a lengthy discussion on whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich. But I'll lay off for one podcast to not get our guest's opinion on that. But that could be that could be our calling card someday.
Yeah. I wanna hear this 1 star. What did
this
someone
is
say to
this
shit on
is
this course?
this is lengthy, so
Oh boy.
let me get through this one, and then we can revisit it because I obviously have some thoughts just from a human perspective of like, yeah, well, what did you expect? So let me get into this, and then we'll follow up here at the end. Beware, you may not get to play, and honestly, I think this is the only time I've been so disappointed slash mad about a golf course. So this all started by looking on their website and seeing if they had any events on the day I wanted to play, and nothing is posted for the day that I wanted. Then I called to see if I could make a tee time, and the lady said they don't do tee times, but I would have no problem getting on and playing. I said, "Sweet. I'm driving up 4 hours from Connecticut to come play, and I can't wait." Well, the day came to come play, and I'm super pumped after paying for parking, jumping on a bus to go catch a ferry. I finally get to the course. I go to check in at the front desk, and the lady says, "I hope you're not here to play until noon." I look at her and say, "What do you mean?" She says they have summer camp and no one can play until noon. This is at 8:45 a.m. I tell her how I called 6 days in advance and was told I would have no problem to come and play, and nothing was posted on their website about this. The two ladies did try to get me on before camp started, but the golf pro was not having it. So there I was, stranded on an island, sitting on a bench, seeing all the kids get dropped off, and then watching the golf pro talk about putting to the kids for an hour and a half until the ferry came back. So on the way back, all I can think about is all the planning, time, and money I wasted trying to play this course. And honestly, I think this ruined my vacation. So, golfers, be aware that this could happen to you, and I wish this on no one.
Wow.
Okay.
Tough.
Um,
Well,
I have my thoughts because I've obviously read this review a handful of times.
Yeah.
Aaron, rebuttal, thoughts, concerns?
well, so I never got a chance to look at any of the 1-star reviews. So my guess was that was going to be, for someone that gave a 1-star review, it was going to be someone that their expectations were not met. Like they were expecting tea times, but clearly this person seemed like a golf nut, knew
You knew there
what the
was no tea
vibe was
time.
like. knew what the travel, what that requirement was. I mean, he seemed like he knew what he was getting into. So, I mean, it does sound like it was a miscommunication. It probably seems like the person that he spoke to on the phone maybe was different than who he spoke to in the front desk. One person may not know, the full operation. So I'm I guess I would hopefully just chalk that up to just a miscommunication. But at least he just had to wait a few hours. Like there are things that you can still do on the island. Like if I were him, I would have gone straight up to the hotel and, grabbed an eggs Benedict for breakfast. Like
Yeah.
it's not the worst place in the world to be stuck, but it sounds like he also woke up at 3 or 4 in the morning and drove all the way up. So
Yeah.
I can understand the disappointment, and at least he or she wasn't ragging on like the course itself. It was just the letdown of getting getting, delayed.
You
Yeah.
know what also this reminds me of is like someone like an American in Paris expecting the waiters and waitresses to be really snappy with service, and then the people in Paris are
Mm.
just not in a hurry, and turns out you're the asshole. That's what it feels like. It's like, okay, hold on. You just took a ferry to an island in the northern part of the United States where life is probably pretty slow on this
Yeah,
island, right?
for
And
sure.
you're expecting service that's, you know, from another part of the world. I just feel like you hear that and you go, okay, I'm gonna go have that eggs Benedict and I'm gonna go watch some kids learn. Like, I don't know, I'm gonna go chip around. I would make the most of it, like you said. I wouldn't necessarily be
Yeah,
pissed.
I wouldn't just like, throw in the towel and, throw a fit from there. But
Yeah.
it
And not
yeah,
only that, but they decided to go leave a one-star review about this place.
yeah, I mean
So
They didn't just internalize this. They
I mean,
decided everyone needed to know.
I'm not trying to defend the guy because I mean, like, if I were in his shoes, like, because he clearly knows that if you're going to play at Great Chebeague, and I was going to mention this, with the whole tea time, aspect, they are pretty transparent about like what events they have coming up, like for junior clinics, member events. They have like an event once or twice a year called SWAT Fest. It's kind of equivalent to like the random golf club, like Mad Scramble, where everyone's out on the course. So like he or she said, you have to know as long as they're not having any events that day, you should be good. So it sounds like they did everything to double check. It just maybe they were talking to maybe they got misinformation. So, but like I said
Yeah.
earlier, not the worst place to be stuck at if
that's
if you're
Yeah.
familiar.
so that was my thought through all of it. One, I thought using the phrase "I think this ruined my vacation" is a little much. If I'm being quite honest, if something like being stuck on an island in Maine for a few extra hours ruined your vacation, you need to reset your priorities in your life. Number 1.
Mhm. Yeah,
Number 2,
and
I
and I'm not sure like what part of Connecticut they were coming from, but and like you've kind of already hit on this, and I already had an idea of what this, the whole Chebeague Island vibe was going to be like because I had gone to Fisher's Island, a year prior for Fisher's Island Club, and I had learned that Fisher's Island and Chebeague are very similar in the sense that they're small islands, they're remote, they're really not known. There's kind of this like aura or mystique about them because life is very slow, laid back in both of those places. You've only got maybe a couple hundred people that live there year round, and then it kind of gets into the thousands for tourism season. Um, so like I feel bad for the person. It just sounds like it was just straight up misinformation, but
yeah,
like
it's
you can
it's
still
a
make the most
bummer.
of it.
Yeah, it sucks because it sounds like he had planned for one thing and was met by another. I also feel like a course like this is something where you probably plan to be there for most of the day because it's somewhere
Yeah.
that is only accessible by ferry, and
Yeah.
ferry schedules can get messed up, and there's all sorts of other like travel logistics that you necessarily like. There's a lot of things that are outside of your control that you necessarily shouldn't be worried about because they're not in your control. You are at the whim of the ferries or what's going on at the golf course or whatever, right? The other
Yeah.
thing that I harken back to that we talked about, I can't, I'm coming back to Torrey Pines, Sean. So bear yourself, prepare yourself.
I
Um,
realize they came off a little aggressive. Okay, I'm already regretting the air. I stand
I'm
by my point, but I came off a little hot.
I
Apologies
tease.
on that.
I tease. I tease. If we failed Torrey Pines on the Marshall test when we put it to the must play test, or actually no, we passed it, but
No, we passed.
we passed it, but we said, hey, don't expect less than like a 5 hour round here, but this is probably the coolest place where you can have a 5 hour round. If there's any place where I'm gonna kind of be stranded and have to maybe wait a few hours to play golf, being on a fucking island is pretty cool. Like,
Especially coming from where we do in the country. Like,
oh my god, right? I mean,
I know Aaron's not far in New England. I mean, Rhode Island's New England, right? Yeah, that's New England.
yeah,
Yes.
Okay,
yeah, he roots for the
sorry.
Patriots.
Uh, but like coming from the West or even the Midwest, you don't see like that kind of the part of the country when you're out there. It's like a whole different feel and look and smell, and it's incredible. And especially in that rural part of the islands, like there are so many other islands out there, and you
Yeah.
don't think about that. What's wild to me, and this is going off track, I apologize, but what's wild to me is like on the Pacific, there's very few places other than like I don't know, maybe Seattle, where you're on the coast and you're staring at islands. If it's an island, it's Catalina or it's like nothing else.
Yeah,
Really.
I mean, like you go play Chambers, and you're like, oh, there's like a bunch of other stuff
Yeah,
outside of this bay.
you go on the Atlantic over there in the Portland area, it's like you don't even see like the rest of the Atlantic. There's just other islands past you from the beach, and it's such a crazy, weird feeling to think that there's much more out there. And then thinking there's a golf course out there too, and then thinking, but I better make it home in time. Like that doesn't jive with me. I feel like it's you know what you're getting into, and you should
Yeah,
anticipate that this is going to be
that's
very relaxing.
it doesn't feel like it's around where, you have to get on the horn with the wife and be like, "Hey
Yeah,
babe,
sorry, babe.
I'm going to be home 4 hours later than expected." It's going to be
Yeah.
like, "Hey babe, I'm taking a day on my vacation to go play this 9-hole golf course, and I'll probably be gone for most of the day."
Yeah.
TJ, should we do a listener voicemail segment in the future, and the 1-star reviewers can call in and defend their position?
If you happen to be this person, please reach out to us at Fair Wagers on Instagram, fairwagersgolf@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Right in the YouTube comments, right in the Spotify comments. Like, please, I would love to have you. I would love to interview you and have you defend this. And just, I want to give somebody that aspect and that space to do that because I think it is a
Yeah.
little one sided. Or maybe he wrote this while he was sitting fuming, like on a bench and on the
On the
island, like
ferry
just
back.
pissed, just absolutely just pissed, or on the ferry back, just
Yeah.
like we talked about, white knuckle pissed on the drive home from Cabot, like same thing, just on the ferry back. He shot a 50 on a 9-hole course. He's fuming and just pissed, leaving the review. So, okay, I think we've belabored on about the one
Yeah.
star
Yeah,
review
we're good.
more than
Yeah.
enough here. I want to let Aaron talk about some of the must play test selections. We've asked Aaron to come prepared today with a few of the must play test questions that he thinks that Great Chebeague is going to easily pass. So, Aaron, what is the first test that you want to take a look at?
So let's get started with we'll do the dime a dozen tests.
So we're gonna go all the way. We're gonna work backwards here. Maybe we're gonna start at question 10. The dime a dozen test says, "Is this course unique to the area, or could you get this golf experience somewhere else on your trip/visit?"
Right.
Aaron, what
So
are our thoughts here?
I wanted to kind of start this one just to kind of like set the whole stage, not just for the golf course, but just like the whole area in general. As Sean has kind of mentioned, how Casco Bay is just this huge chain of small and big islands. There's probably dozens of them, and somewhere out there is a golf course. So you have to know which one it is, but if you're going to make the trip out to Chebeague Island, like you are in for a treat for like an authentic, not just authentic New England weekend, but an authentic Maine weekend experience. And you really have to just embrace like everything that comes with it. And so I would say it's not a course or a setting that you can just copy and paste and kind of put in other parts of the country. but yeah, it's very unique to that area. So if you're from New England, chances are you've kind of been up in Maine, know what that entails. If if you've never been up here in the Northeast, then you're going into it pretty blind. So
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
a truly unique experience. And my fiance and I, we said to ourselves like this could easily be like a yearly trip. We go like the weekend after Labor Day when the weather's still nice but tourism has kind of died off. And we were just like we just love the place so much that we even thought about looking into like having that as our wedding venue. Like that's how special the
Oh
place
wow.
was.
Wow.
And we were like almost to get we were ready to maybe get on the phone with them, but we talked about it, and it's pretty clear that it would be a logistical nightmare to have 100 plus people out there. They they had told us that like, oh yeah, like there's like Airbnbs, like you could have everyone kind of like split a bunch of houses out there. Like it may be possible, but the thing that really kind of spooked us was the whole ferry situation where like, are you gonna trust 100 plus people to get in and out safely? Like, you
Yeah.
don't know what's gonna happen. So as much of like a fairy tale like wedding that would have been, and like I would have loved to, get that golf course involved somehow. We unfortunately had to move on from that idea, but it is really unique in that sense. And like, notice how I haven't even talked about the golf course. It's just like the
The setting.
location,
Yeah.
the aesthetic of the location, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It feels like, as a person who is also planning a wedding currently at this moment, you have to think about the logistics of venues and not just what the coolest venue is. You have to think about grandparents who are in their 90s, or other people who are family members who definitely get seasick. There's all sorts of complications of, well, it's supposed to be your special day, and it's supposed to be, all the things that you want to do, but you can't not take everyone else into account when you're planning for it, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
for sure. So maybe
Okay.
it's definitely a good spot to look into for like a bachelor party or a bachelorette. Whether you're staying on the island or staying in Portland and making the trip out there for a day. So one thing that I mean, I think the next time we would go, we'd probably stay in the hotel. It's a nice, like, quaint little inn. I think it has like 21 rooms. So, you know,
Wow.
very, very, very low key, but kind of has a good setting. And but you can also go there for, they have the lunch, they have the patio, the bar, the restaurant that's open to the public. So I'll mention that in another segment, but you know, that's where the vibes are at as well.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into it. Let's talk about this second pass on the must play test.
So the second pass was actually I don't even know if I. Oh yeah, okay, so next one we'll do the vibes test. So that's
Okay.
when you guys were wondering like, is this worth hanging out at this place like post round?
Yeah. Does it? Yeah. Is this course worth staying at post round? Do they have a good restaurant or patio scene?
Yes, for sure. So the inn or the hotel is not really associated with the golf course, but it's basically like on the same property. It's kind of perched at the top of one of the holes. So after you can treat it as a pre-round, a halfway house or post round. So yeah, the vibes are definitely there for the in. What we did was we after the first 9 holes we just kind of took a break, and when we went back to the pro shop, the head pro was very you know uh accommodating and let me leave my bag there. We left all of our stuff there, walked about maybe 100 yards up the hill to the hotel. You just take your time there, get your burger, get your lobster roll, get the full
Yeah.
cuisine experience. And then, we didn't do it this time, but what we kind of learned is that the hotel can hook you up with like a bike rental, so you can even like book a golf cart and you can, go on a little um like a little like day trip onto like the other parts of the island where you can get coffee, check out some of the restaurants. They've got, beaches and hiking trails. So that's something that is, definitely worth looking into, pre, mid, or post round. But in terms of like what the golf course has to offer, there really is nothing except just the little shack that you check in at as the pro shop.
Mhm.
They don't have a a Beth cart or a halfway house or anything like that. So
Well,
they've
we gave Torrey Pines credit for the lodge, which is part
Mhm.
of the hotel, not the course, but it's right next to it. So I would say in the similar case, you can consider these the same, right? If
Mhm.
it's kind of connected to the property. Also, the photos as you're talking, I don't know if we want to share this on the pod, but like I'm looking at that patio at the inn, and it looks like 100% a place I want to go hang out afterwards.
Oh
And then
yeah.
I looked at another photo looking out from that patio, and you're looking at sunset over the bay, and it
Yep.
is gorgeous. I
Yep.
I think that 1-star review just convinced me I want to take my family here and have my kid on this course and then go like stay at this inn for a night or something. I don't know. Like
Yep.
it sounds really pleasant. We were talking about Mackinac Island in Michigan, kind of the same thing where it's like, hey, you might as well stay up there for a night if you're going to be up there. This island looks like that where I would maybe golf is like in my mind, but for the family, like this inn and the whole place just looks so serene and very relaxing.
Mhm.
Definition of vibes for me. I would say this
Well,
one definitely looks like it passes.
and
Mhm.
kudos to them from not only the pro shop standpoint, but also from the hotel standpoint. They've kind of got you in a vice here on if you want to have a drink or something to eat post round.
There's beds right there.
There's well or
Yeah.
like we talk about how places fail the vibes test on must play because we went and had dinner somewhere else after our round and didn't have it at the course. We were in a hurry to get out of the course
Yeah.
or away from the course. Here you don't have that option really. You've got to wait for the ferry anyway. So they could have a very meager offering because you're there. You have to have it, right? Same thing with the pro shop. Like if they wanted to, they
Yeah.
could probably really have a robust pro shop and charge $400 for a rain jacket because if it rains and you're out there, you're going to need a rain jacket and you're probably going to almost pay whatever the price is, but it doesn't sound like they're necessarily I'm sure they go hand over fist on whatever they charge for balls and gloves out there on people who the probably one of the last places you want to show up without a ball or a glove. But
Yeah.
um, good on them for not just uh, mailing it in on the vibes test and actually providing a good place to hang out that you'd want to stay. And it's good enough to where you're talking about planning a full yearly trip to it. It sounds like Sean is already bookmarking all the pages here on his
Oh my
other
god.
screen.
TJ needs to see this photo. I don't know. I don't want to present here, but there's like one of like the 4 chairs on a table in the corner of the patio looking over the bay at sunset, and the next photo in the list is the bar from inside, like right behind you. And
Yeah.
I can already picture myself on this
Well,
bar.
Massey, make sure I get those. We'll drop those into the pod
Yeah.
for anyone who's watching on Spotify or YouTube. We'll make sure that people can get those easily viewed.
Yeah,
Okay.
the entire hotel, like setup is there's lots of different places you can hang out there. They have like they have a restaurant and bar inside. I'm sure they have some views from there. They've got the patio, which is like where we ate lunch, where everyone you kind of gravitates towards. And then kind of over to like the side of the building, you've got like kind of a big lawn area. There's I think a fire pit, like cornhole spot. So yeah, and then you added in the fact that it's summertime. You got the sunset facing that direction. You know, like the last thing on your mind is going to be what did I shoot that day? Like it won't
Yeah.
even cross your mind.
Oh yeah.
And
Unless you're the guy who had
would
his
have played
vacation ruined.
the course, as many times as you wanted.
Yeah.
That also seems like it's a sweet vibe of being like, oh, there's going to be maybe a day where I just try and play as much golf as I humanly can that day until
I
the
was trying
body
to think
breaks.
like what's the limit? How many holes before I get tired? Like what do
to
you I've never thought about that.
The limit does not exist.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, thankfully.
and then you can. I think I'm pretty sure I've seen pictures. They like allow people to go barefoot at some point.
Yeah.
So
I,
you got to embrace it.
I just read something the other day about somebody talking about like there's no greater feeling than putting barefoot. Like it's like the feeling of a green, like a nice manicured green on the bottom of your feet is unmatched. If you're
Mhm.
a golf purist, I guess. If you're someone who doesn't appreciate golf, it's just grass, right?
Yeah.
All right, Aaron. So we got 2 down. What's the third must-play test that you wanna present to us today?
All right. So next up, we'll do the buzzworthy test.
Okay, the buzzworthy test is, are there multiple holes worth talking about? Does this course have more than one hole that a group would immediately want to go play again? So I think we can
Uh,
assume one of
yeah.
these holes, right?
Yep. So when you talk about Chebeague, you're automatically going to get right into the signature hole, which is the seventh hole. So you can't miss it right when you get in. You know, if you're going into Chebeague with absolutely no prior knowledge, you're gonna get to the dock, and then the first thing you're gonna see is a driving range hitting mat right on the corner of the dock, and you're gonna hit right over the bay about 110 yards up to a kind of a two-tier green. It's a little bit elevated, but it's kind of tightly surrounded by some trees. So it's kind of like a hole that you would love to have in your backyard and just have like unlimited access to.
Yeah.
And you know, like we got pictures and videos. And the nice thing about for me that day is, and I remember the way they describe it really eloquently on their website. They say that it's the hardest green like complex to kind of hit into, but paradoxically, it's also like the easiest one. So it all depends on the pin placement. So it's a two-tier green. If it's a front pin, like ace cam is live, like it's very possible. So that's what I had that day. It was right down on the front right. And if it's there, you know, you're pull out your 100 yard, 115 yard wedge. And all you really have to do is as long as you can throw it into like the middle left, as long as you don't go to that top tier, if you throw it anywhere in the front half, like anything could happen. So you can get really creative with that shot, and you know, it's a really cool shot. So when you get there, you know, you see the seventh hole, but then you have to walk up to the pro shop and you gotta, you know, get started with the round. And for me, I've had this experience a couple times on different golf courses where you go to one and you know ahead of time what the signature hole is going to be. And like you just can't get it off of your mind. That's the only thing that you're thinking of because you don't want to screw up that moment. So for me, like the times I've kind of experienced that was I did play Paynes Valley, so all you're thinking about is 19. When I played Coeur d'Alene, all I could think about was the 14th hole, the floating green. And then here at Chebeague, you got the seventh hole. So it's a little hard to focus, at least in my opinion, when you're just so fixated on that one hole and what that moment is gonna be like. So Chebeague is also it is 9 holes. There are no par fives. It's you know about half par threes, very short par fours, and the sixth hole is a short downhill par three. Nothing much to it, but once you finish that hole, you kind of have to kind of trek through the parking lot like for the ferry, and then you get to that hitting mat, and then it's just like it's showtime from there. And I was playing with a couple with their son. I think they were in from like Virginia or something for the weekend, so you know they didn't know anything about the course, and you know we were just having a great time. Like we're cheering each other on, taking pictures and videos of each other. Luckily, it wasn't super busy that day, so we were each hitting like 3 or 4 balls into the green, and
Yeah.
it's so fun. Like I could play that hole for the rest of my life.
I was gonna ask how many balls you hit because I mean that's one of those. If you're walking all the way out there, you don't want to just hit one ball. You want to drop at
Oh yeah,
least
for
two to
sure.
go see how you can play it,
Yeah.
knowing that you're
So
gonna come back around after lunch still. But
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, we knew we were gonna at least get to play it twice. I can't remember how many balls I hit altogether, but I do know I did not hit any in the water. So that's
nice,
I'll
very cool.
I'll take that.
Yeah. I have a question on that hole. Is there a like people backing up and watching? Like, do you have a bit of a situation where like, you're not going to walk out there until it's your turn to go play the hole, so there's people on sixth green kind of watching you, or is it not that busy where you don't run into something like that?
You're not gonna there's no interference like with the other courses. The only thing that you may have to deal with is because like you're kind of in the parking lot for the ferry, so you're gonna have some foot traffic there. Some
People getting off
people,
the ferry and seeing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you might have some, like, they're not going to heckle you, but like you may have a little bit of an audience behind you. So, um,
That's cool.
yeah, it's one of a kind. I really can't put it into words, and for some reason I think it is kind of cool how, like, as much as people say, oh, I hate hitting off of mats. I think this is the one, like, hole where, like, it's okay.
Yeah, it's a
They
pass.
just threw a mat down on, like, a concrete slab on the deck, on the dock, and it's just fire away and see what happens.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
TJ, if you'll
Go ahead.
allow me real quick,
Yeah.
I enjoy having a bit of an audience as an amateur golfer. When else are you going to get these opportunities to have people watch you hit? And yes, you'll feel a little extra pressure, but there's a couple courses come to mind that we've already reviewed on our podcast. There's Wildwood, where you tee off on 10, and this is in Portland, Oregon area, and it's the patio of the clubhouse is right off the tee box of 10, and so you have a bit of a heckling situation going on and a lot of eyeballs, but it's so much more fun. It elevates the tee shot because you just have a little extra pressure of people watching. And then the other one I think of is Goat Hill on 9. There's a bunch of benches around it, a bit of an amphitheater, and they end their match plays there at 9. But sometimes people just standing around watching before they tee off or kind of watching people come in. I just love those moments in golf when you have just a few eyeballs on you and you can't wait to put one close or hopefully not chunk. So
Mhm.
having a ferry offload people, I would purposely like cherish that moment to be able to hit a shot.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good way that you described it. It kind of has a, like, amphitheater effect where you've got the dock behind you, a little bit of an
Yeah.
audience, you're hitting over water, and then, I mean, I'm not kidding, the green has no relief around it. Like, if you miss the green, you're going to get stuck in the tree somewhere, and
Yeah.
it could be one of the trickier 110-yard shots you'll ever hit.
That's cool.
Um, I hate to bust up this great conversation and this stroke fest over hole 7, but the buzzworthy test technically says, are there multiple holes worth talking about?
Yep.
And right now, Aaron, you've only talked about one hole on this golf course for
Yep.
most of this podcast.
Yeah.
Is this a pass?
Yeah.
Is this a pass by the definition of the test?
There are a few other holes that, in my opinion, stand out to me. I think there is something to be said about those couple holes that cross over Wharf Road. It's not very often that you walk up to a par three, sorry, a 300-yard par four, and the starter tells you you cannot hit driver. You need to lay up 170. That's like their golden rule there. So.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I think that makes some of the holes buzzworthy, but then again, there are some of the future holes that cross over the road. You can go over it. So not really sure what went into that decision, but I abide by the rules. There is another hole. I believe it's the third hole. You have to, if you're going to play the back tees, you kind of have to walk into the woods a little bit. And I remember my fiance took a really cool picture of me, walking, like, through the woods with my bag over my shoulder, and there was, like, a wooden sign that said, like, back tee. So it's little things like that when you kind of have to, make a little bit of a journey to a tee box, kind of like free your mind a little bit. And then when you get to the tee box, it is another short par four. Like, you probably don't even need to bring driver to this course, but you kind of have to hit out of a pretty tight shoot off of the tee box. So then you gotta, go back over the bridge that you crossed, and there is another hole where you have to kind of get into the woods for the tee shot. So yeah, I would definitely say that a handful of the holes are buzzworthy. Some of them are,
Okay.
a little lackluster, but it does pass because of the multiple ones. But I think hole 7 is clear cut the hole that people will be talking about.
Yeah. Do we yeah, Massey, do we have to change this question where if one hole is so good that that every other
No,
hole
that's
just
the point
I know.
of the
No, I
question.
know, I know, I know, I know. I know.
Yeah.
Most golf courses all have a signature hole.
Yeah.
Okay. So as one can probably expect, there's probably some other tests that we've alluded to that this would definitely pass on the must play test, but I don't want to spoil that because again, ultimately we want to put this course to the must play test, put it through the whole 10 question rubric someday. So I want to leave some room for that. But I also want to leave some room to let Aaron talk about Rustic Golf Provisions and talk about himself a little bit.
Hmm.
I think Aaron's done some cool stuff for us. If you've ever seen any of the bag tags that Sean and I have on our bags, or Aaron's got a nice series going on right now that he's doing on his Instagram. So Aaron, tell us a little bit about Rustic Golf Provisions, what you do, what you've got going on, maybe where people can find you, we like to leave this space a little bit for you to brag about yourself.
All right. So before I kind of get into like what I'm doing with Rustic Golf, I guess I'll just kind of start with my golf, background. So I've been around it my whole life. I started probably under the age of 10, just with summer camps out in a clinic here in Providence, Rhode Island. So that got me some experience with a club in hand. And then my family and I had a membership at a private course here in Rhode Island. So was able to learn the etiquette, kind of the nuances of the game, work on, my game itself. And then that once I became, too old to be a child on the membership, I was on my own after that. I never really played a lot of competitive golf because I played baseball throughout high school, and that was always my stronger sport. And that was a conflict because it was in the same season as golf. And I mean, golf, I've always been a golfer, but I think the light bulb in my head kind of went off to maybe pursue something further, like a Instagram page of some sort. For me, it was probably a my trip to Pinehurst in 2021. That was kind of my first destination golf travel experience, and I knew what was going to happen at Pinehurst. We did the number two, number four, stay at the hotel for the weekend. That whole excursion, and I think one of my not my lowest score, but people will ask me what was my most memorable round or my favorite round. I still have a bit of an internal debate, but I would say my round at Pinehurst number two was one of my most memorable. I shot an 85, which is very middle of the road for me. It doesn't blow, the scorecard away, but I was very happy with myself because I flew in the night before, got in very late, had to take a taxi to the resort. I was probably running on like 2 hours of sleep that morning, teeing off number two, and I believe I only had one three putt on the day. I had one birdie, and I remember actually the one three putt I had was on the ninth hole. It was that par three. Not sure if either of you guys have played it.
I know the holes, but I've never played.
Okay, so
So
yeah, it's a par three. It's about maybe 160, 70 yards. It's right in front of like the halfway house. And
yeah.
going into that hole, I knew if I parred it, I was going to shoot 39, and I wanted to break 40 so bad on one of the nine. And I put my shot on the green, and I had about 20 feet, and I three putted. So
I mean, those greens are diabolical, though. So
right. I mean, I was ready to get rossed like all day, and for me to have one three, but I was very happy about it. It just came on the worst hole because I wanted to break
yeah,
40 so bad. So
Mm.
so there was just something about that Pinehurst trip that just made me realize, oh wow, there's just so much more to golf. There's travel. There's just all these different experiences with meeting new people. So that's when I kind of had the idea of, okay, I want to do something. I didn't have the idea yet. And then over the next year or two, I started to kind of experiment with golf photography. I have always followed it, always admired what I see. And before I got into photography, I probably like all of 2022, I was just buried in YouTube. I was going down every rabbit hole you could find on YouTube when it came to like woodworking and DIY stuff because throughout those years of COVID, everyone's got free time on their hands and they find themselves doing stuff like that. And I just watched so much YouTube with not even just like golf related projects, just any kind of woodworking projects, like whether it was coasters or cutting boards or picture frames, and then how can I make these like custom, golf items. And I kind of joke about this. I even put it on my website. I tell people I graduated from YouTube University. That's how much time I was like educating myself with this stuff.
Hmm.
So I was at the point where when I was watching a video of, some woodworking creator make something, I could predict what tool he was going to use. I knew exactly how this project was going to play out. But the problem was I didn't have really any experience. I didn't have a workshop, a dedicated workspace, or a ton of tools because we were living in a condo at the time that didn't really offer that. So I actually made my account and came up with the concept of Rustic Golf Provisions that year, but I didn't really do much with it for about a year or two until we got into our house now. And the first thing that I did was kind of build out my well, I guess I call it my pro shop, the provision shop. I built out my workshop and realized, okay, I could now get to work on making this content of, golf woodworking DIY projects. Also, along the way, I just randomly got into the photography, bought my camera. It's a pretty budget friendly, like entry level camera that I got in October of 22. And it's pretty ironic because I actually got it on my doorstep the night before my trip to Big Cedar, where I played Paynes Valley. And I would have been pissed if I didn't have my camera for that trip. So to be able to document that trip and see how great they came out, I kind of figured, okay, I'm going to mix in photography into Rustic Golf Provisions and just see where that goes. And I've been doing photography mainly as a hobby for the last year or two, just getting experience with friends and family. And going back to the woodworking stuff, once I had my shop built out last summer, I my original intent or kind of niche was to have it be more of like a blog style where I would just kind of pump out different types of projects every week and make a blog out of it and inspire people to maybe get into their own shops and do it themselves. And every time I would build something, I would, make a blog out of it on my website and put all of the instructions and put some affiliate links, maybe make some income off of that. That was the original intent. And then sometime last summer, I got into another rabbit hole of laser engraved bag tags. I just if I see something that piques my interest, I will go down the deepest rabbit hole imaginable to learn about it. And
Yeah.
I bought my laser engraver. I started messing around with it, getting all the settings right. I made a couple bag tags. I can't remember who I made it for or who I gave it to, but after a couple bag tags, I got some pretty good feedback. And that's when I realized, okay, there is legitimate demand for this. And I think TJ, the bag tags I sent you guys back in the fall, you were probably one of my first couple, just small orders. And I just realized, wow, like there's real demand for this. So, and also having all the photography experience, I decided to turn Rustic Golf Provisions into like a one-stop shop for your woodworking and photography golf needs. And I've kind of pivoted into like a business model versus that blog style.
Mhm.
But I would like to get back to the blog style eventually because there are things I would love to make. I don't want to be known just as the bag tag guy. It is a great passion project and great way to meet new people kind of through my TPC series, but I do want to get back to building the things I've always learned about, um, and maybe add that into the business as well.
It's always funny, talking to other people, like, in the space and what the idea was initially,
Yep.
and then what it has morphed into.
Hmm.
I know that hosting a, golf course review and preview podcast was definitely not anywhere near on the roadmap for when Sean and I started Fair Wagers last January. So we're in the same boat of, like, you think you start something that people need or that people want. We actually still really love our idea that we initially started with. I know Sean and I are both really big on it and want to do more of it. I think it just was more time intensive than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Let me give
no, I
you
mean,
let me give you props real quick, Aaron. I just on Friday had someone scan the QR code on the bag tag that you made for TJ and I,
Mhm.
and I I put it on the side of the cart that faces out, obviously, so it's kind of easy to see and play with. And I had a guy ask, and I was like, "Oh yeah," and I told him about you, and then he flipped it over and saw, and he's like, "Oh," and he pulled out his phone, scanned it, and he's like, "That's wild. That worked on wood." And I was like, "Yeah, it's like laser engraved." And he really was impressed by it. But also, I love that it works so easily, like on the first try. Some QR codes, you can do that weird like scanning thing. It
Uh-huh.
worked right
Mhm.
away. So props to you, man. It's a great piece on the bag, but it's also very efficient.
Yeah, the QR codes are definitely like a crowd favorite when people get them customized. And I always, if especially if I'm doing like a big batch of them, I always make sure that the sample code works. And even when I put the
Yeah.
oil finish on, when the wood kind of pops and darkens more, you still got to double check that the code works. And so far, I've had no issues with QR codes. I mean, all the props really go to my laser because all I do is, mock it up. I mock it up in Microsoft Word. I take a screenshot of like the design area, send it over to my phone, and then it's all through Bluetooth. I just have to, get it dialed
Right.
into the right space.
Right.
And I actually kind of thought of a kind of a funny idea for just like a fake bag tag. I could put a QR code on it, somebody scans it and they get rickrolled after.
I was gonna say I knew Rick Astley was gonna pop up. You're gonna Rick roll it.
Or just some kind of prank where people are like, oh wow, like QR
Yeah.
code, like what golf website am I going to go to?
Mhm.
I like that you picked two passions, by the way. You have a few rabbit holes you said you went down, but when you retire, a lot of guys choose golf or woodworking. You just chose
He
both.
said, "I'll take
Yeah,
So
both."
so I feel like you could spend time in the shop or on the course, or like you've merged it. It's
yeah,
really cool.
exactly. Like, and back in the Pinehurst trip, that was when the idea of I wanted to do something, n- not going to drop the I word, influencer, but I wanted to do something, some sort of golf content, and I didn't want to do, what is very common these days, where things are very saturated, where, doing product reviews or whole vlogs. I'm not the type of person to film myself playing rounds of golf, and I'm not really the best at talking to camera, especially if it's, if it's for like product reviews or whatnot. But I just knew I wanted to kind of differentiate myself in a different way. And I've always had this creative side of myself that I like to express myself through that creativity. It's kind of funny how my mom she'll keep all like scrapbooks and, projects I did from when I was in elementary school. And I remember last year I was looking through like my third grade materials, and my third grade teacher, one of my favorite teachers, she put us to work. I mean, we were doing all the different subjects: math, history, science, art. And I could tell just through my work in that I would say that she kind of sparked my creativity. And I've always had that with me. And that kind of explains why I got into the photography and the woodworking. And, there's easy crossovers with that in golf. And that's what golf is awesome. That's why it's so awesome, is because there's so many intersections with golf with other, aspects of life.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest takeaways with this is that if you feel like you need a creative outlet, or you feel like you have creativity and you think that finances or tools or skills are the things that hold you back, they're not. I mean, Aaron very clearly is not a graphic designer, and he is making the templates for the bag tags in Microsoft Word. Like, he did not go out and teach himself Photoshop or buy a Photoshop license or do any of that, right? You are using a program that is readily available on almost every computer out there, and went out and just bought a laser cutter machine, right? And
Yeah.
like you said, you studied everything at YouTube University. When Sean and I started this, everything was recorded off of a phone. We had no mics. We learned we had never edited any sort of videos or any sort of content or anything. I think Sean, how many times had you tried to probably start a podcast before this one?
No comment.
About as many times as I probably tried to start a t-shirt business in my life, which is less than two handfuls and more than a few fingers.
I just
But
didn't
yeah,
have the right guy until I found TJ.
hey man, same.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the biggest thing to take away from all that is don't let tools and resources be the thing to stifle any sort of your creativity. Just
Yeah.
start going, and you'll learn along the way, or you'll pick up tools, or you'll meet people who have tools and they're getting rid of an old one, and you're like, hey, can I buy that old one off you? Or they're like, oh, I've got a bunch of these. Let me just send you an old one that I don't use.
Yeah.
Um,
And TJ,
so
what you just said kind of is behind why I started my TPC series. So for anyone who has not seen what I'm doing on Instagram, I started a free to join kind of informal community for now called the Provisionary Collective. So Rustic Golf Provisions. I kind of took a while to come up with that. I knew I wanted it to be Rustic Golf something, and I went through dozens of options for that last filler word, and provisions just sounded perfect. Because if you read a couple definitions of it, it really ties into what we do as golfers, as content creators. We're trying to, provide something for others. We're trying to be prepared for something where we have a stock of materials that we commonly use. So I wanted to kind of have people explain, to our audiences what their provision is, because I think everyone, whether we're golfers, content creators, whatnot, we all have a vision, or in my case, a provision of what we want to do, and we have different ways of showing that provision, and that makes us all a provisionary instead of a visionary. So basically I'm inviting people into TPC to get a free bag tag if they want to have an interview, and just tell me and their audiences what their provision is. And it's just another way of people describing what their niche is, what got them into golf content creation, what's their mission, where are they going with their accounts.
mhm. Yeah, very cool way to take multiple audiences and kind of overlap them and expose them to other people too. Where, you might have somebody who follows you because you do some woodworking, you do some photography, but they don't know us, or they don't know Rev, or they don't know, a bunch of the other guys that I know you're still, I think you're still under like the first 10 people here, but I know that list continues to grow and
Yep.
expand by the day. So I'm
Yeah.
sure there's been other people who I didn't know about who I've already learned about,
Oh
and
yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of
I have quite a backlog going right now. I think I've got 24 people. So I put out the first seven, but I have another 17 people lined up. So I gotta make some more
okay.
tags and schedule some more interviews. So I like where it's going. We'll see if we can maybe get
Yeah.
into triple digits.
Yeah.
When I made the provisionary numbers, like the member numbers on the back tags, I like for you guys, TJ, you were five, right?
Yep.
So for everyone, I left three digits. You were 005. So
Yep.
so if I'm putting three digits, I need to hold myself to that standard of we got to get the triple digits for TPC.
Well, let's hope you don't ever. Well, I don't know. Maybe you'll get to 1,000. Who knows? We'll
Yeah,
cross that bridge when we get there, right?
we'll see.
All right. Well, Aaron, I want to thank you again for hopping on. It was great to talk about Great Chebeague. Great to talk about Rustic Golf Provisions. Obviously, if you want to go follow Aaron, I think it's at Rustic Golf underscore Provisions. And
Correct.
obviously, we'll put all that in the description of the episode, whether you're on Spotify or YouTube. And fingers crossed. This is one that I mean, obviously, so far, all the ones that we've talked about, I want to go play. We wouldn't be having people on the podcast if I didn't want to go play these and go play golf with these people. But this
Yeah.
one feels a little special, and I think there is potentially a world in which Sean goes and plays this course by himself, and we have to do a must play where it's Sean and you, and we maybe drag somebody else in because I want to keep them as firsthand experiences, and I'm going to be really upset that I didn't
Yeah.
get to do it. Maybe Eric Anderslang will hop on and take my place,
What I
for one episode only, a guest host.
what I can tell you guys is if you make a trip out here and don't tell me, I will be very upset because I am not far from Maine, so I would expect to hear from you. if maybe, and my recommendation would be, for you guys or anyone that wants to make the trip out there, get the full New England slash Maine experience. Check out Portland. It's all very accessible. You just have to know some of the logistics. Bring your family, bring kids if you want. It's very family friendly, and maybe if the three of us get together, maybe we can call up the 1-star review guy and he could be our fourth.
Oh yeah, there you go. All the way up from
Oh,
Connecticut.
yeah. Again, leaving it out here. If for some reason I don't have his name written down on the review, but I'm sure if you go look at the reviews, you'll find out who he is.
His
But if you're
Google username,
if
his golf or his Google like username is probably I hate Chebeague 224.
yeah, yeah, worst vacation ever, 25. But yeah, I digress. We want to remind you, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more upcoming episodes, whether they're Must Play, where we do golf course reviews, or this Level Select, where we do golf course previews. And if you're listening or watching on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, don't forget to rate Level Select and subscribe for many more. And guys, we'll talk to you next time when we unlock a new level.